Somewhere along the way, you learned not to trust yourself. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you were taught to override your own knowing. And there's so many things that teach us to override our knowing. From all of the various phases of our life, there are things that teach us that. And if you're here, you're probably the one who's meant to break that pattern of overriding yourself. So welcome to Soul Footing Guidance. In this video, we're going to go over an introduction of who I am, how I help people, why I'm passionate about this work, why it matters to you, what to expect from this channel moving forward, and also how you can continue to connect with me. So here we go. My name is Megan, and I help people through a process of connecting to themselves deeply. I guide people through the process of breaking generational cycles and patterns by using human design and the gene keys alongside other spiritual healing modalities, energy work, that kind of thing, to take ownership of the patterns, transmute their patterns, and follow a process of, I would say, really journeying inward to reconnect, reclaim your worth, your self love, your self compassion, inner knowing again. And for some people, that might feel like for the first time. And this is not like a surface level self care kind of reconnection, and not like a intellectually understand your chart kind of way. This is like actually trusting yourself and learning how to stop overriding your inner knowing, and a place where you don't feel like you have to look outside of yourself or hesitate when it comes to making decisions, and where we break patterns that feel like they've been running under the surface for years and maybe even generations. And this work is very centered around relationship and emotional patterns, but more as a mirror for how you can learn more about yourself and learn more about your purpose and learn more about how to initiate your life in the direction that you've been wanting to go and how to make decisions in an aligned way. And the people I work with are so self aware and so resourceful, like inner resources, and knowledgeable about their patterns and knowledgeable about people around them and human behavior. And I would say they would probably describe themselves as capable, and they carry so much for themselves and for the people around them. And a lot of people I work with, they've done the therapy, they have listened to the podcast, they have watched the YouTube videos, like they've done a lot of that work to understand their patterns intellectually. But there still feels like this gap. And there's this gap between knowing things, like having knowledge, and living differently. Like right in that middle is this embodiment gap. And that gap tends to contain the generational cycles, the shadow patterns, the unconscious material. It's in that spot. And that's where this work lies. So, how did I come to this work? Why am I so passionate about it? Part of it comes from my personal experience. So, I was in a relationship many years ago before I met my husband, where now that I can look back on it, from pretty close to the beginning, I had a lot of experiences of not listening to myself. And it didn't happen all at once, right? It was often these small compromises or moments that didn't feel right, moments where like I wasn't listening to my body. My body was contracting or I was shutting down, like where I knew something was off, but I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge the fact that something was off. And instead of honoring it, I would often explain it away. Like, maybe I'm overreacting, or maybe I'm being too sensitive, or maybe I need to be more understanding. And I was so understanding. I can see that now, especially. And I would tell myself, maybe this is just what relationships are. And without realizing it, I was repeating a pattern. And that pattern was so connected to self-abandonment, often abandoning my needs, minimizing my needs, sometimes maybe not even being able to tell you what they were, and patterns of tolerating behavior that I said I would never tolerate, or just kind of noticing, putting up with things that I wouldn't usually put up with, or allowing my boundaries to be crossed in ways that I never thought that I would. And this is the part we don't often talk about enough, which is how often we're living out these dynamics that were either modeled to us or that have just been in our DNA from the get go, and we are meant to transmute them. And sometimes it's, inheriting nervous systems of the people around us, the parents around us, especially who are in survival mode or who are rushing or who aren't meeting our emotional needs, and they're in survival mode rather than thriving. And it takes someone being conscious about this to interrupt the patterns. Otherwise, they tend to continue. So it was in this relationship where I started having the realization of I'm not listening to myself. I'm not listening to my nudges. I'm not listening to my intuition. And I knew in my bones that something needed to change. And so it took kind of a tipping point to break off that relationship. And that was the beginning. Like, that decision was a big part of the work because that decision was hard to make. And it took me a long time to make it. But after that is where I see the work starting, because that was actually the second bad relationship I had been in. And, if it happened once, I'm sure, after the first one, I often kind of explained things away. But then it happened a second time. And so then I had to look at it differently because I didn't want a third. And so I started to look at my own patterns. And there's a nuanced place here, right? Because yes, his behavior was often bad behavior. And there was a lot of things that from the outside I could be like, he needs to change X, Y, and Z. But if I stopped there saying he needs to change X, Y, and Z, I wouldn't be able to check in with what work I needed to do to have a different relationship. Like having to ask, why am I able to compromise my needs so easily? Or why is conflict so uncomfortable for me that I just decide to not have it when I actually probably need to have it? And why do I not set boundaries? Or when I set them, why do I not hold my boundaries? And it was really important to me for my next relationship to be devoid of those patterns. And so I had to look at, like, where am I overriding myself? Where am I choosing comfort over truth? And especially the kind of comfort that I'm talking about where you're actually very uncomfortable, but it's the uncomfortable discomfort that rather than being open to uncertainty. And why did I let logistical things get in the way of me doing what I needed to do for myself? And another piece of this was having to look at those really old patterns that were older than me. And so, yes, it starts with learning how to make decisions and trusting our decisions and trusting our inner knowings. And then there's also this really important piece of how do I move towards self compassionate responsibility to look at my patterns so I can transmute them. And more of a recent why, like a deep why I'm passionate about this, is this shift into being a mother. And so I have a daughter now, and I broke a lot of cycles before having her. But becoming a mom helped me realize, like, I get the honor of being a full-time cycle breaker. This isn't like a one-time pattern breaking thing. This is going to show up because I'm human, and I get to pay attention to these patterns so I can transmute them in real time. So part of it is for her, and part of it is this is an opportunity to evolve and expand into who I am and who I've always been. So having this little human in front of me who shares a lot of my DNA, the stakes felt higher. And I just took it more seriously. I took it seriously before, but I would say I take it even more seriously now because I want to transmute my patterns into their highest expression so that she doesn't inherit things she doesn't need to. It's often the things that run under the surface. It's the things that are harder to be aware of. Kids learn what love looks like by seeing what we're doing. And kids learn how to trust themselves by watching us. And they learn how to accept or not accept things based on what we tolerate and accept or don't accept. So I knew in my body I needed to continue to cycle break so she doesn't have to. And that became my new why. So I know that I'm going to be a parent who messes things up. So it's not coming from like pressure or perfectionism or shame. It's almost allowing this devotion, this commitment, this love to move things into a more conscious direction, to break patterns consciously and on purpose. And so, what I learned from all of this, both my own work and working with others, is that most people already know. Like the knowing isn't the thing, right? Most people know what doesn't feel right and they know what they need and they know what keeps happening. But they've been conditioned to not trust themselves, conditioned to stay small, stay quiet, especially maintain peace outside of themselves, even if inside they're like freaking out and it's not peaceful in there, almost prioritizing the comfort of other people. And this cycle breaking can be really subtle, right? It's like those moments of, okay, can I choose honesty and responsibility over my own stuff instead of denial and blame? And can I set a boundary because my body is telling me I need one? And can I listen to my anger because it's telling me something? And can I stop explaining away red flags and bad behavior and excusing it? It's the moment you decide that the future generations ahead of you get a different starting point. And you don't even have to have children to break cycles, right? Like the cycle can end with you. You're someone's future ancestor. You are a part of the collective. When you heal, things open up for the generations ahead because we are all interlinked. And the people who find me are usually people who feel this responsibility in their bones. You know that you came from a line of people ahead of you that did the best they could, but didn't know how to break certain patterns. And you are called to do it differently. And we're removing the perfection standard and we're moving more towards doing it consciously, not doing it perfectly, knowing that you're going to maybe feel uncomfortable and that you are ready to move through that discomfort and fear to get where you know you need to go. You're doing it because you refuse to pass down what hurt you and what's running the show under the surface. Uh, You probably have felt like a black sheep or you felt too sensitive. And if that sounds like you're the cycle breaker that I'm talking about. And on this channel, I'm going to talk about this cycle breaking. I'm going to talk about self trust and inner knowing and relationship and emotional patterns and taking responsibility of patterns with self compassion, nervous system healing, spiritual healing, and how to open our heart back up to life, especially when we've had to guard it, whether that's a bad breakup or a dark night of the soul or whatever that might be, and what it actually looks like to break these generational cycles in real time. So, not just from theory, not just from reading about it, but from lived experience, from doing the work alongside the people that I'm working with, because I very much see this as a lifelong skill that we don't have to look outside of ourselves for anymore. And if this resonates with you, you're in the right place. You're not alone. You're not lost. You're remembering who you are underneath all the conditioning. It's like throughout our life, we get all this clay plopped onto us and we have other people sculpting it, like who we should be and what should be important to us and all the shoulds. And a lot of this work I see as almost like taking off the clay that doesn't fit anymore and realizing that you were like a fully formed, wonderful, perfect human, imperfect, perfect human under all that clay. Like you never needed the clay in the first place. And every time you choose yourself, and every time you tell the truth, and every time you break a pattern, even if it feels like such a small one, you're changing more than your own life. Like truly, if we can connect to that place of me healing and you healing and transmuting these patterns and these shadows, it sends a ripple effect into the collective. When we each take it upon ourselves to take responsibility for our own patterns and transmute them, we help everybody. And you have everything you need to initiate and expand into the life that you've been looking for. So, like I said, if all this resonates, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Soul Footing Guidance. And if you're ready to do this work one-on-one, fill out an application on soulfootingguidance.com to work with me. And I look forward to being on this journey with you all.